This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Seating plans. Everyone's favourite topic, right? Well, they might just be more important than you think. From boosting focus to taming chaos, the way we arrange our classrooms can shape the way we learn. So let's dive into the world of desks, chairs, and classroom strategies.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Well, welcome to the Late Late Show with me, Chris Wilkinson. Tonight we're delving into a topic that every teacher, student, and even parents has encountered at some point: seating plans. Now, you might think seating arrangements are just a logistical choice: who fits where, who can see the board best, and so on. But the reality is far more complex. Seating plans are the unsung heroes of the classroom, playing a crucial role in learning outcomes, behaviour management, and of course, inclusivity. Now, let's start by looking at why seating plans matter. Research in the UK has shown that seating isn't just about order, it's about optimising the learning environment. A study by the Education Endowment Foundation, or some of us know it as the EEF, found that even small tweaks in classroom organisation, such as seating arrangements, can lead to measurable improvements in student focus and achievement. But it's not just academic outcomes that are at stake. Behaviour management is a critical aspect too. And Dr. Pamela Hanley and her research led classroom dynamics and found that strategic seating assignments significantly reduce off-task behaviour. So, for example, separating friends who tend to chat too much can work wonders for overall classroom productivity. And on the flip side, placing quieter students next to more engaged peers can have a positive influence, creating a ripple effect on participation. Then, of course, is the question of inclusivity. Now, in today's classrooms, we need to consider students with additional needs, whether it's physical disabilities, neurodivergent conditions like autism or social anxieties too. So, organisations like the National Autistic Society recommend seating plans as a tool to create predictable, comfortable environments for all students. So, as you can see, seating plans are much about them as much as they are about logistics as well. They're a vital part of classroom strategy, and today we'll unpack the research and real life examples to explore this further. Now, to be honest, thought of this subject only the other day when I was put into another classroom for one of my sessions, and in that session, I was given a classroom with loads of rows in them rather than the typical, classroom setup that you might have where people are working in groups. And I just thought how well that lesson went. As a one off, just how different it was. And it got me thinking, is that perhaps maybe the best way to do it? Or is my original setup the best way to do it as well? So, if I'm honest, no answer is particularly correct, but it is something to consider. And it got me thinking about this tonight, which got me going down a rabbit hole of looking at what the EEF said and looking at other aspects as well. So I am going to put a bit of a Christmas twist on this as it is close to Christmas. And I'm just going to use a few little puns from time to time just as a little bit of a Christmas twist. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope it is something that you can take away and use in your practice as well. Now, let's unwrap the reasons why seating plans matter so much. So, first off, let's talk about the impact on learning. A well-structured seating plan can really sprinkle some magic in the classroom, like the fairy dust of education, as it were. According to the EEF, seating arrangements can have a huge impact on student engagement. So, picture this. Students are seated at the front of the classroom are much more likely to stay focused. It's a bit like putting the best Christmas lights right in front of you. They draw your attention and light up the room. In larger classrooms, it's easier for students further back to slip into the shadows and drift off. So, putting thought into the seating can make sure every student gets their moment in the spotlight. And I was recently at some CPD with the creator of Inner Drive, and he really gave a good conversation about this and talked about the different types of students that we have. And the ones that really fall short or are likely to fall short are your so-called diligent students. That's the students that or the pupils that are very hardworking but tend not to elect to engage verbally or engage, maybe non-verbally, but the point is they tend not to volunteer to engage. And I really thought that, these seating plans really would support them type of students. And you could probably think of a student in your class now that is that diligent student, the one who will do anything you ask them to do, but but becomes a bit of a shrinking violet when it comes to cold calling or coming to them sort of thing. So seating plans can really sort of help them sort of people as well. But of course, we also talk about behaviour management as well, and seating plans really step up to the plate when they're like mistletoe of classroom management. And research into UK secondary schools shows that direct link between seating arrangements and behavioural issues. So again, Dr. Hanley has done a lot of work on this, and it's shown that placing certain students in strategic spots can keep things under control, especially when you separate those with high energy who may end up like a bit of a Christmas cracker ready to pop and cause any chaos at any time. You can also place students who need extra support near you. So interventions can be made quickly. After all, who wouldn't want to have a Santa-like presence that can swoop in and offer help as needed? And I think the seating plans really do support that, don't they? Now, let's have a look at the gift of peer influence. So seating high achieving students next to those who might need a bit more support can turn your classroom into something of a Santa's workshop. Peer tutoring is a strategy recommended by the EEF, and it's like a Christmas card for your classroom. One student can give the gift of knowledge, while the other can unwrap new skills. But of course, we don't want to overload those high achievers, and of course, it's not their responsibility to make sure that learning is happening. And we don't want that extra rush and Christmas rush of extra work. So balance, of course, is key here. So thoughtful seating can help ensure that everyone is on the same page, like a Christmas dinner where everyone's plate is full but no one is overstuffed. Sorry, I will stop soon. But I also think as well on that particular note, there's an argument, of course, for placing higher achieving students together as well. And recently in one of my classes, I've actually done that. We did our mock exam, and it was clear who came through on the mock exam needing additional work or additional feedback from others. And I've really made the conscious choice of putting those who need the additional feedback, need that additional scaffolding. I've put them together, and I don't think they're aware of this. And I've never really made it consciously, I've never made it clear to them that that's the reason. But I've done that because there will become times, especially when we're looking at typical essay-based questions where they are falling short, where they can all benefit from the same feedback. And I don't necessarily think it's particularly obvious why I've done it that way, but it has been. I have certainly made sure that is the case. And in other classes, it isn't the case, and I have varied it around as well. So, of course, it does depend on your students. And in one group, I teach A-level law. In one of my A-level law groups, they have that, that there's that, if you like, that differentiation, as it were. I know it's a word that we frown upon now, but it's that, the idea that they are put together in order to make sure that the scaffolding tasks, as it were, are mirrored according to table. And yet I've got another group where that doesn't actually work with them. And we've got students who do that peer support, and they do it quite willingly, actually. And um, it's not that I've given them additional tasks to make sure that they're peer supporting. It's part of their personality. They're actually okay with doing that, and they're doing it without being asked to do it. And it's just strengthening and those in particular, strengthen them skills. And of course, it's horses for courses. So, above all else, it's clear to say that you do need to know your student in order to know which seating plan works with which. And if I was to do it the other way around with the other two groups, it wouldn't work. And I've known them long enough to know their personalities and how that works. But of course, back to the whole idea of why seating plans matter, we can't forget about inclusivity, which is a real star on the top of the Christmas tree. So a good seating plan ensures that each child's individual needs are met. And for example, a student with a visual impairment might need to sit in the front row to see the board clearly, while some with social anxiety might feel more comfortable sitting next to the door. I certainly have students in that position this year. In fact, in a couple of classes, we almost have a table full of people who want to sit close to the door, and that's fine. In a way, the seating plan is decided based on that. They tell me what the seating plan should look like based on their needs, and it's not necessarily bad that they need an escape route, but of course, but we know that by being able to see the door, they have that comfort to know that they can, dash if they need to. They use their hall passes to do so. And, it's not just about, again, the physical placement of desks, but it's about creating a warm and welcoming space where everyone feels valued, like they found their perfect spot under the Christmas tree. Now, in one of my colleagues has a U-shaped or horseshoe style, and we had a really good conversation over lunch the other day about how that works for their class, and we really had a debate as to whether or not that would work for my class. And I will dive into that a little bit later on, but sometimes you just see it's a bit like a Christmas present. You see somebody else opening theirs, you think, "Oh, I quite like the idea of having that instead." Or you get jealous about someone else's present. It's a bit like that with a classroom. Sometimes you think, "Oh, I quite like the way that looks. Quite like them rows. I quite like that horseshoe." And sometimes you spoil for choice. And so this is why I've decided to do this again tonight, just so we can, for myself, just to have a really good think about, is my seating plan the best way for me? And whilst I currently think it is, maybe by 10 o'clock or by the end of the show, I might have a different opinion on it. So who knows? Maybe this is good for the soul and good for the classroom soul as well. And, teachers in the UK have reported that consulting students about their seating preferences can make a big difference. Now, I know I've done that. Like I said, I ask them where they like to sit, and it always helps. It's part of it's part of the science of learning, understanding that what one of the things, and the teacher toolkit says this, one of the biggest aspects of creating outstanding teaching, or what makes teaching great, is that you create that supportive environment. And so, of course, the teacher toolkit says this because they're evidence-based. They're called evidence-based education. They know what they're talking about. They've done their research, and they know that creating a supportive environment can do that. And I'm not saying you have to ask every student or every class where they like to sit, because that's not going to get the answers or the solution that we want. But asking a handful who has that social anxiety makes all the difference for them. And when students feel like they have a say in where they sit, it's like they're unwrapping a present. That they're taking a layer off of they're almost taking a shield off, aren't they? And they're allowed to be a little bit more like themselves instead, and they're taking a little bit of a shield away from them. And maybe it brings you closer to them in the classroom, which is what it's all about. And they are more likely to be engaged and cooperative, because they feel like they have some control over their environment. After all, no one wants to be stuck with the Christmas puddings, do they? So we've covered a lot of ground on how seating plans can impact focus, behaviour and inclusivity. But what I'd really like to do is start looking at how these strategies can be tailored for specific student types, students and subjects, ensuring that every classroom and every class is festive and productive as possible.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are your teachers juggling multiple technology platforms and struggling to keep everything organised? Then Toddle might be the answer. Built by a team of ex-educators, Toddle offers an all-in-one solution for teachers that streamlines everything, from curriculum planning and assessments to communication and report cards. And the best part? Toddle comes inbuilt with an AI assistant that helps teachers save time and improve their practices. 85% of schools replaced 3 or more platforms when they brought in Toddle. Teachers using Toddle say that the platform helps them save up to 10 hours a week. That means more time for what really matters, supporting students and driving academic success. See how Toddle can support your school. Visit toddleapp.com.
Hey education changemakers, ready for something special? It's Bet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting edge edtech companies and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
Welcome back to the Thursday Late Late Show with me, Chris Wilkinson. Now, let's explore the different types of seating arrangements and what research says about the pros and cons. I mentioned before the break that my colleague was talking about putting, well, in fact, they do put their classroom into a U shape, and I start thinking, is that the way I want to do it? Because it looks fresh, it looks new, it looks good, and it looks really good for us. And I actually did a bit of research into this as well, and it works best for humanities-based subjects like my politics and law classes. So it is getting me thinking about, do I stick with the with the traditional route that I've gone, which is the cluster seating, or do I go with with that instead? And of course, like I said, on Thursday, in my last lesson today, I was actually relocated to a classroom where there's rows instead, and I actually thought that worked as well. So I'm going to dig into traditional rows. I'm going to look at cluster seating, and I'm also going to take a look at the U shape as well. And let's just have a look and see which one we think might be the best. And I'm going to be positive about all three. I'm not going to decide tonight which one I'm going to continue with, of course, but I am just going to tell you which ones, the benefits for each one, and then maybe offline afterwards, I might make a decision. So let's explore the different types of seating arrangements and what research says about them. So the right seating plan can truly make or break the atmosphere in the classroom, just like finding the perfect spot under the Christmas tree, like I said. So the options are available to us this. So first of all, we have the traditional rows. So the setup has been a classroom staple for decades. I remember being in school, being in rows, when it was alphabetical order. It didn't particularly matter who that person was next to me. The fact that my surname began with W, whatever their surname was, W or V in some instances, I was sitting next to them, and it might be that I was sat with them all year because their surname was W. And, it is tidy, it's efficient, it ensures that everyone can see the board clearly. It's it in a way, if we're thinking of this setup as a festive wrapping paper, it's neat, it's structured, well organized, and everyone knows their seat. Now, a little bit like a tag on the presents. Everyone knows who it belongs to. You know your seat, you go sit in it. And rows are particularly effective for teacher-led instruction and individual tasks. Now, because of the session on Thursday, I'm in there with traditional rows. I make sure that it is, teacher-led. There's not a lot of collaboration going on in that time. There might be the odd turn and talk, but it certainly doesn't go beyond pair work because of the classroom setting that we're in. And I actually love the fact that I get to do that once a week, and it's a really good way, and it's fresh. It's a way of doing things differently. Now, the EEF notes that rows help minimize distractions, which is ideal for tasks that require focus. So, for example, like me today, if you're running a reading session, so you give them a case to look at and do a deep dive into that particular case, you know, the rows are your friend in this instance because the think, pair, share works perfectly. You read it, you read a section, or you read the case, you do the deep dive, you do the pair, you do the share. It's wonderful. But, just like the Christmas pudding, that may not be everyone's favourite. The traditional rules do have their drawbacks. Now, I did say I was going to be positive, but I do want to critique it too. So the downside is that, again, it's not good for collaborative work, and it's really good if, like me, you're in there once a week, and that's fine. But if it's set up like that all of the time, the collaboration does take a bit of a hit. And for A level in particular, humanities based subjects, you do need that collaboration. For politics, I absolutely need that collaboration. So, it's great every now and again, but I couldn't rely on them rules all the time. It's like imagine trying to, pass a Christmas gift round a row of desks. You might be passing things over and under and around, and it wouldn't be the smoothest exchange. So, for group work, peer interaction, or discussions, you probably need a more flexible arrangement. Rows simply don't lend themselves well to teamwork or dynamic group activities. So, while they have their place, they're not always the most festive of setups when it comes to collaboration. Now, I want to talk about the next one, which is my main source of seating, which is the group, or sometimes it's referred to as cluster seating. The arrangement places students in small groups around a shared table. Think of this like the Christmas cracker of seating arrangements. It encourages conversation, laughter, and interaction. Group seating is fantastic for collaboration tasks. It encourages peer interaction, and it's especially effective in subjects like English, or in my case, humanities, where discussion is shared and ideas are the main course. Only today in one of my classes with the cluster seating, I was able to drop a flip chart paper on the board on the wall, sorry, on the table, and we were doing how criminal legal aid is given and how you can get access to criminal legal aid. But I started the lesson by introducing somebody called Herbert. I put a picture of Herbert on the wall, or sorry, on the board, and I just said, okay, tell me what crime Herbert has committed. You can be as flexible as you want. As long as it's a real life law, you can consider whatever you want. You can talk about the crime, but I also need to know his circumstances so that we know if he can afford his own legal aid. So you need to tell me his work life situation, who he lives with, if he has a job, what's his capital, is he a homeowner, all these different things. And it went a bit crazy actually, because one group, and this only happens when you've got a cluster of people, one group decided that Herbert was going to be a crystal meth dealer dealing out of their loft, which was, came out of nowhere, to be fair. And one group decided that he was going to be a cannibal. So, you don't get that level of creativity if you don't have the cluster settings set up. So I think it worked really well. And it was a bit daft, but at the same time, they got the point from it that the more serious the crime, the more we needed to consider legal aid, because the bigger the crime, the more likely they are to be sentenced to a very long sentence. So they got the point of it, and you just simply would not have achieved that in a raw situation. So the cluster works really well. And, research from UK classrooms suggests that group seating can really boost student engagement, like I said. It's certainly a way to mix things up. However, just like a lively Christmas party, the setup can lead to increased noise levels. And it is remarkable how much more time it takes to settle them down in clusters than it does in rows. But um, I don't know. It takes a couple of seconds longer. And again, the education, so the evidence-based education tells us that we should be, part of the great teachers. We should be maximising learning opportunities, not letting 10 seconds take up our time, telling them to be quiet. So it does eat into our time a little bit, and it can be a little bit more complicated to achieve that sort of silence when they're doing group activities, not because they're naughty, but sometimes because they're so into the task it just takes a bit longer to get them under control. But look, if that's the price we pay for collaboration, I'm happy to give 10 seconds of calming them down if they are still wanting to do the task for a bit longer. So ultimately I think clusters is fine, and I think it works really well in that regard. And of course, it does come down to classroom management. And, 10 seconds 10 years ago to me might have been 30 seconds or 40 seconds. So my classroom management has got it down to 10 seconds. And again, I can give 10 seconds to them if they are enjoying the task. And, so of course, if it isn't carefully managed, it can turn into a snowstorm or an off task behavior. And things can get out of hand faster than you can say, ho, ho, ho. Sorry, I will stop. And that's why it's essential to keep an eye on group dynamics and ensure that there are clear boundaries for when students need to focus. Now, the next type is the one that's getting me thinking. Okay, it's the horseshoe. And it is another popular choice, especially in secondary schools. The setup is like gathering your family around a table for Christmas dinner, and everyone is in view. And everyone has a chance to contribute to the conversation. Now, the horseshoe is fantastic for discussions, debate, and group activities, and it does foster that sense of community. And because every student can see each other, it does encourage that open dialogue where debate and discussion are key. Now, the colleague in particular who uses this, she teaches geography and religious studies, and it really lends itself well to that. And I actually have I share one of the students with for geography in my politics class, and I've asked her. One of the students said, "How does it work for you in geography?" And I've asked her opinion. I really, I really trust her opinion. She's a really good student and someone whose opinion I greatly value. So I just said, "Look, what is the horseshoe like for you? Does it work?" And she just simply went, "Yeah, but it does for geography. It won't work for politics." I said, "Oh, why is that?" She went, "No, we all sit round a table, we all discuss in politics because there's only 6 of them in one group, so I put them around one table." Said, "No, it works better. We get round a table, we discuss it. I can't speak to, you know." Whoever the student's name was she was talking about, I can't speak to them if they're in the same row as me. I have to crick my neck to turn around, and I said, "No, good point, fair enough." And that was almost it really for politics, and it made the decision up. But I actually thought this could work for law, and I have a different classroom for law, and I do share the law classroom with my English language, with one of the English language teachers, my English language colleague, and we did have a good discussion over a sandwich the other day in the staff room about if it would work, and we are really on the fence with this. So I thought I would just take a little bit time to just spend a bit of time on the good old horseshoe, as Tom said, and just really get us thinking, does it work? So like I said, it's fantastic for discussions, debate, and group activities. It does foster that sense of community, and it does work for subjects like history and, in law. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure about politics. And I say history not as a history teacher, but I did speak to my history colleague who said I don't actually use horseshoe, but I would consider it. And I know I've got Tom listening. I don't know if Tom would agree with a horseshoe or not as a history teacher, but seemingly the research tells us that it does work for history. So, it does seem to have an idea. Like I said, it's a bit like passing ideas around and sharing stories, a bit like a Christmas dinner setup, I think. But of course, this arrangement isn't without its challenges, and one issue is that the U shape can be less practical for the larger class sizes. Now, in some ways, I actually think the larger class sizes might work, but again, the research does tell us that the larger class size is a bit more difficult, and it's a bit like trying to fit a gigantic Christmas tree in a small room. Sometimes it can be a bit cramped with too many students, and for smaller classes, more intimate discussions, the U shape is perfect. But for large groups, the it is possible, of course, but we have to rethink the setup to make sure things do run smoothly. Now, the final one I was going to consider was this idea of flexible seating, and it's a relatively new trend that is gaining a bit of traction more in primary schools. And flexible seating, when I was doing this, what I've been doing is when I've been looking at the different types, I've been trying to make that Christmas connection. I'm actually currently wear my Christmas jumper at the moment because I've been wearing it all day at work, and I just haven't took it off. So I'm really in the Christmas spirit at the moment. So I thought, what's flexible seating like? And I think it's a bit like Santa's sleigh. It's fun, it's adaptable, it gives students the freedom to choose where they want to sit and how they want to sit, whether it's on whether it's on the table, not well on the seats on the tables, or in some situations, especially in primary schools, there may be cushions and beanbags, or it could just be the traditional chairs. I certainly wouldn't have beanbags in my class. I'm just saying. But when I've looked into this, the flexible seating does involve this type of seating, and again, it's probably more appropriate for primary school. But if we use traditional chairs, I also think flexible seating could just be every day. Just come in, sit where you like as well. And I think the idea is to make the classroom feel more like a winter wonderland where students do have some autonomy over their space. And again, it's like, do you know your students? You need to know them, don't you? Do you trust them that this is going to still work? And sometimes it's not about trust either. Sometimes it's not, let's, they may be the most behaved students, that you have, and that's maybe sometimes still not the reason to go flexible, because in some instances, you need them to learn, and it's not, do you trust them to do the work, because you do. They are diligent students, but the diligence isn't necessarily what you need from students. You need that engagement sometimes, and engagement might be lacking if they do have that flexible seating, because they, like young people can be, just don't have the discipline to engage, even though they are being diligent. And again, the inner drive does a really good point on this as well. But anyway, so students like those published in the TES show that flexible seating can improve student engagement, making a gift that keeps on giving. So students are more likely to engage with the lesson if they feel comfortable out in control of their environment. Like I said, it's not all sugar and spice, though, with flexible seating. It requires high-level classroom management to be effective. And again, classroom management doesn't mean behavioural. It can be, but it also means, are we maximising them learning opportunities? And it's not always the case that does happen in these sort of situations. And so they need to be carefully monitored for that as well. But of course, students might find it hard to stay on task if there aren't them clear boundaries set and routines in place. So while flexible seating has its perks, it also requires a bit of an elf-like organisation to ensure it doesn't become a reindeer stampede. And again, not just behaviourally, but as part of the maximising learning opportunities as well. Now, truthfully, where are we with this? Am I now all of a sudden rethinking my strategy because of this? I don't know. And truthfully, it's really good that I can look at all 3 or 4 of these different types of seating plans and say, actually, they all work. So it's a good problem to have. And what I'm going to do is ponder a little bit about this, and maybe think about other factors that influence in seating plans as well. And at some point, perhaps, maybe make a decision about which one I think is the best for my students.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are your teachers juggling multiple technology platforms and struggling to keep everything organised? Then Toddle might be the answer. Built by a team of ex-educators, Toddle offers an all-in-one solution for teachers that streamlines everything, from curriculum planning and assessments to communication and report cards. And the best part? Toddle comes inbuilt with an AI assistant that helps teachers save time and improve their practices. 85% of schools replaced 3 or more platforms when they brought in Toddle. Teachers using Toddle say that the platform helps them save up to 10 hours a week. That means more time for what really matters, supporting students and driving academic success. See how Toddle can support your school. Visit toddleapp.com.
Hey education changemakers, ready for something special? It's Bet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting-edge edtech companies and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week covers targets set by Prime Minister Keir Starmer to boost the proportion of reception pupils achieving a good level of development to 75% by 2028. Labour's Plan for Change also sets out how the impact of its so-called opportunity mission will be measured through attainment at the end of secondary school, but does not set a specific target. The focus on giving children the best start in life will be measured by improvements in EYFS profile results. This year, 67.9% of children were judged to have a good level of development across areas such as language, personal development and maths. The highest ever percentage was 71.8%, but that was under an old assessment system. According to data published alongside the pledge, hitting the target would mean approximately 40 to 45,000 additional children a year would need to reach the developmental goals. Research from the Centre for Young Lives suggests children who are not school-ready are almost 2.5 times as likely to be persistently absent and 3 times more likely to end up as NEET. In a speech, the Prime Minister said hitting the milestone was an almighty challenge, as 1 in 3 children are not ready for school at the age of 5. Nick Harrison of the Sutton Trust said the target was absolutely the right ambition, but it will be a monumentous task. The government said its first step is recruiting 6,500 extra teachers, but ministers have still not set out exactly how they will meet this. Further details of the plans can be found on the Schools Week website and across media outlets. BBC News Wales reports that university fees are set to rise to £9,535 a year, a £300 increase, from September 2025. The Welsh Government's announcement brings tuition costs in Wales in line with a rise already announced for universities in England. It is the second increase in charges for Welsh courses within a year, after the maximum charge went up from £9,000 to £9,250 this September. A 1.6% increase to maintenance support for undergraduates was also announced. A government spokesperson said raising fees was necessary to ensure Welsh higher education institutions remain competitive. Further details and reaction can be found on the BBC News Wales website. Both the BBC and Schools Week also report on comments from Ofsted Chief Inspector Sir Martin Oliver on the issue of school attendance. Sir Martin has revealed he is worried about the rise of so-called flexi-schooling, saying Ofsted isn't able to get a proper handle on the practice. The Inspectorate's annual report warns of a rise in what it describes as unorthodox patterns of education. This includes a small number of schools allowing children to be flexi-schooled, where parents choose to home educate their children for part of the week. The Chief Inspector said he is very concerned that schools can record this as an authorised absence, which means Ofsted can't be sure how prevalent the practice is. He went on to say he has raised concerns with Department for Education and thinks greater safeguarding is needed. Sir Martin also made reference to an Education Policy Institute report which compared GP registrations with school records for children aged 5 to 15 and found that 400,000 children it might expect to see in schools are not attending. Further details on all of the comments made by Sir Martin can be found online. Plans by all three exam boards to introduce on-screen GCSE exams have been delayed due to disruption caused by the general election and the recent curriculum and assessment review. OCR, AQA and Pearson EdXL had ambitions for digital assessment in 2025 and 2026. Both require sign-off from the regulator Ofqual. But OCR has said it can't launch digitally assessed computer science GCSE despite making good progress on the qualification. Whilst for Pearson, they said giving the choice for on-screen GCSE English Language and Literature in 2025 is now unlikely. AQA had already confirmed a delay to introducing on-screen exams for GCSE Polish and Italian. An Ofqual spokesperson said it has not received any formal proposals for on-screen assessments. Ofqual and the Department for Education have been undertaking a feasibility study on what it would take to make GCSE and A-level exams fully digital. Finally, East Anglia Bylines reports that a group of French school children from northern France were left disheartened after British border authorities denied them entry to the UK due to a minor clerical error. The group of students aged 10 and 11 had been due to spend 5 days in the Scottish Highlands, but British border officials in Amsterdam stopped them citing incorrect information on the France-UK school trip travel information form. The form is mandatory since Brexit. The error was linked to passport and identity card numbers, reported in the same section rather than on separate designated fields. The group was forced to return home despite each student carrying a valid identity card, usually sufficient for entry under current UK-France agreements, as long as the school they travel with is registered with the French Ministry of Education. Since Brexit, French school visits to the UK have fallen by 60%. Prior to the vote to leave, French educational trips contributed an estimated £100 million per year to the UK economy. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Oh, welcome back to the Thursday Late Late Show with me, Chris Wilkinson. Now, let's dive into some of the factors that might influence my decision and, of course, our decisions when it comes to creating the perfect seating plan. And just like choosing the right decorations for your Christmas tree, choosing the right seating arrangement can really set the tone for your classroom. Now, what are the main factors that come into play when deciding where each student should sit? Now, first up, we have the age group of the students, and think of this like choosing the right Christmas tree or the right Christmas gifts for the different age groups. Younger pupils often benefit from more structured seating plans, whereas older students may benefit from the more cluster type. this is because students can teachers can easily keep an eye on them, and it's a bit like giving the youngest family members the safest seat at the Christmas dinner table, right in the middle, so everyone can keep an eye on them and everyone knows where they are. But of course, I teach A level, and age isn't really a factor as such. And I know some of our listeners will have age groups from year 7 right through up to year 13. And of course, that does vary. But, age isn't really so much a factor for me. So I don't consider it like that as to why that is. So I'm going to be a little bit selfish here and move on from the age factor. And also, the reason being as well is because even if age is a factor, it may be difficult for you to quickly change seating plans around on the basis of this as well. Especially if you're actually, having to change your seating arrangements just for for that. So you can't go from cluster to horseshoe to rows within a session of each other. So age may not well be the biggest factor there. But who knows, it may be. But I think for me, it's more about the subject matter at A level. And like I said, I do think I've almost ruled out the horseshoe for me in terms of the politics. And again, Erin, my student today, she made it up the other day. She made it very clear. Actually, it doesn't work for us, and I don't think it does. And her opinion really was the, if you like, the rubber stamp on that I needed to sort of remove the horseshoe from that. But the others certainly in play, and like I said, I'm hoping to make some inroads before we leave today. That's my challenge. And what are the factors for this? And again, it's the subject matter. And you want to choose the one that's going to suit your needs perfectly. And so, for example, anyone who's listening from STEM, where students often work with materials, equipment, or even experiments, then group seating works really well. It encourages that teamwork and discussion and that collaborative approach to problem solving. And actually, I was just saying before the break that I think politics is the same. We may not have certain materials or equipment, but we certainly do need that teamwork and discussion. And unlike science, where perhaps maybe there is only the one answer, politics does reach out to various different answers. We don't achieve them different solutions or answers without that problem solving. So I think the group cluster work certainly does, for me, look like that it's the front runner for that, on the basis that it does suit my subject in particular. And this collaborative dynamic can be essential to success, of course, and students can easily share their resources, ask questions, and troubleshoot problems together. Just today, in my A-level politics group, we've been talking about the funding for campaign finance. So, how did President-elect Trump, should I say, and Kamala Harris's campaign, how was it funded? Was it through hard money, soft money, and all the different factors? And that in itself was a quick 2-minute job to see how much they received in terms of donations. But what we had to figure out is, how democratic is it? And we had a good old ding dong with this one. And again, we're not going to get that with clusters, I don't think. And when we look at subjects like English or maths, for example, we may not need that level of discussion, and it might be that rows tend to work better. Why? Because, well, these subjects often require more focused individual work, especially during direct instruction. And I think the rows don't really do it for me, because the direct instruction is less of a thing. Now, I actually share a classroom on a Thursday with the GCC Maths Resit team, and theirs is in rows. Like I said, we last lesson today we were in rows. You can see why that direct instruction works really well. And like I said, it works really well for that lesson. Now, I'm not going to change the seating plan around for 1 hour a week, so I make the rows work for me in that session. Absolutely fine. And at that hour a week, they get direct instruction, and they get passages to read where they can turn and talk and do that think, pair, share. Great. But I'm ruling out rows. I don't think it's something I can do on a regular basis, because it doesn't lend itself well to it. But again, these roads, as we saw, can create calm and a focused atmosphere. But another factor to consider as well, and this is where the horseshoe debate comes into it as well, is the class size and the room layout. So, they are huge factors in determining seating arrangements. And I know Tom said earlier as well, and I must admit I tend to agree with this as well. Lots of others use my room as well, so it might be that if you've got a particular room layout. Now, one of my rooms is used by the the A-level PE team when they're doing theory. A lot of students do A-level PE. That's why they use my room, because it houses more students. Now, they're quite happy, I think, to go in any particular format that I have. If I was to change this to a horseshoe, they could probably just deal with that. But I know that there's other people that do have other have other arrangements as well, and they quite like the clusters. And I'm conscious of the fact that I share rooms with other people, and they use that room because it's a big room that houses a lot of people. So the class size and the room layout works really well, and it is a huge factor. So it's like if you've got a tiny flat and you've got 50 guests, you're going to have a bit of a cramped situation if your seating doesn't allow it to work very well. And the horseshoe, you simply can't get as many students in with a horseshoe as you can with clusters. I can comfortably in my classroom house 35 students. I've never had 35 in one class before, but I could quite comfortably house 35 students without it becoming too much of a stretch. And I think with a horseshoe, I probably couldn't get that many. I'm thinking 10, 10, 10 maybe, so 30. It's a bit of it can be a bit more of a squeeze. So a smaller room may limit your options in the same way that a big room might limit your options as well. So you do obviously need to think of the physical space as well. So, situations like rows of paired seating can be more practical option in the same way that clusters can as well. But like I said, on the other hand, large classrooms is like having a big Christmas feast. There's more space to be creative, so you can spread things out and have that. You have that cluster rather than the U shape to foster that sort of open communication as well. And that spacious room offers greater flexibility and allows for more diverse seating arrangements as well. So I'm back to that old. Which way do I go with it? Like I said, it's really difficult. And of course, let's not forget. All right, we may well be talking about how students learn. We may well be talking about student behaviour and learning environments and whatever else. But we can't forget our teaching style. And our teaching style, we cannot afford to compromise our teaching style if we don't have to. It's perhaps the sleigh bells that bring us together. Some teachers prefer a more traditional teacher-centered approach, which of course lends itself perfectly well to the rows and perhaps maybe the U shape as well, or the horseshoe as well. And so the rows are really great for the majority of students who like that. So teachers who do the majority of talking, like being the master of ceremonies, and getting the crowd's attention that way. But on the other hand, if you prefer a more student-centered approach, which for politics I certainly do, especially my A-level second years, it needs to be student-centered. They need to understand rational culture and structural theory, but they can only do that by trial and error from their own way of doing things. So if you do like that more student-centered approach, the group seating or flexible arrangements may well be a better fit. And teachers who embrace a more interactive approach often encourage students to work together, share ideas, and collaborate. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? I'm sticking with the clusters. I think I'm there. I think I've talked myself around to this, only because I just think when it comes down to it, my teaching style is more around student-centered, and I do believe that's the best way to do it. But I don't know. I can certainly see why the horseshoe would work as well. And of course, these teachers who might also welcome the freedom that flexibility seating brings allows the students to decide where they sit and how they learn best as well. So finding the right balance between the teacher styles and the students' needs is a key to creating an environment. And ultimately, I think if I was going to change my seating style, perhaps I might have done it by now. But I hope at the very least, my fellow listeners, I hope that you can see why it's possible to adjust or not compromise on your teaching style, but perhaps maybe change the seating plan around so that you might get more out of your students as well. So whether it's the age of the students, the subject matter, or the class size, or the teacher's style, these are all critical factors that shape how we plan our seating arrangements. Just like you wouldn't throw a Christmas party without thinking of the seating plan, you can't underestimate the importance of this decision in the classroom. And the key to finding a seating arrangement that balances all these factors and ensures that the environment supports both the teacher's goals and, of course, the student needs.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Parentkind are a national charity representing parent views and voice and championing parental participation in education and school life. By fostering strong school-parent partnerships, we can boost student attendance, improve behaviour and enhance academic performance. When parents actively participate, students thrive. Join the movement that's reshaping education for the better. Visit parentkind.org to learn more about reaping the rewards of working in partnership with parents.
Are your teachers juggling multiple technology platforms and struggling to keep everything organised? Then Toddle might be the answer. Built by a team of ex-educators, Toddle offers an all-in-one solution for teachers that streamlines everything, from curriculum planning and assessments to communication and report cards. And the best part? Toddle comes inbuilt with an AI assistant that helps teachers save time and improve their practices. 85% of schools replaced 3 or more platforms when they brought in Toddle. Teachers using Toddle say that the platform helps them save up to 10 hours a week. That means more time for what really matters, supporting students and driving academic success. See how Toddle can support your school. Visit toddleapp.com.
Hey education changemakers, ready for something special? It's Bet Show's 40th anniversary and we're throwing a free celebration just for you. Join us at London Excel from January 22nd to 24th to connect, learn and be inspired. Picture this, 300 plus speakers who truly get it, 600 cutting-edge edtech companies and all the fresh ideas you need to make 2025 your best year yet. So why wait? Head to uk.betshow.com, grab your free ticket and come celebrate with your peers. Because this is for you. See you at Bet.
Now, I actually went through a bit of a stage there of deciding which is the best seating plan for me, didn't I? But I just want to really make it clear and press on the fact that all 3 or all 4 have some incredible virtues. And I just hope that there's been some light shed on why you might want to consider altering your your seating plan, or why you may well want to keep it as it is, because it may well just be the justification you need to be able to look at them all, make the decision and say, do you know what, I am happy where I am. But it's never too late to change your style. And of course, it's never too late for a bit of a freshen up, and maybe the Christmas time's the right time to do it. If we are slowly dialing down for Christmas, and you are doing perhaps maybe introducing a few Christmas things, like maybe a Christmas a quiz, or a Christmas based activity around your subject, it might be the right time to sample it and see how it works. And before things get serious again when we ramp up after Christmas. And of course, after Christmas, it's a nice time to freshen things up as well. So it's a good time to ponder whether or not seating plans, the way they are the right thing for you, or whether or not it is something that you want to consider moving about and changing. And either way, by going through the thought process, even if you don't do anything with it, you've at least had that decision to consider it. You've done your thought-provoking task. You've gone through some evidence-based practice, and ultimately, you've decided that your practice is fine the way it is. And seating plans can never be underestimated for how important they are to the learning experience. Well, that was the Thursday Late Late Show with me, Chris Wilkinson. I really hope you enjoyed and got something out of it. And can I just wish every single one of you listeners a very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous New Year. And I hope to see you all very shortly. And in the meantime, all the very best.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.